Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and a brand new rule has just gone into effect a couple of days ago that could potentially put players on a bannable list if you're not being careful. Trading gold and trading other items is treated very differently between Classic and Retail WoW, with Classic in particular having a ton of restrictions. But gold swaps has been something the community has been utilizing in order to make the transaction a little bit easier. And while it was never something that was purely sanctioned and technically allowed by Blizz themselves this whole entire time, it was always in this gray area where players were technically allowed to, as long as they were aware that there's risks involved. However, as of recently, Blizzard has stepped in and banned all transfers of gold between different versions of the game, between different factions, and even between servers. And these rules will affect retail and classic players very, very differently. Because this is such a major change that could potentially result in account actions up to account terminations, I wanted to go over exactly what this gold swap ban is and how it will affect different types of players depending on which version of WoW that you play, just to make sure you're given all the necessary information so you can stay safe out there. As always, if you guys want to keep up with regular updates regarding World of Warcraft in general, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So first, I want to go over what is a gold swap. Like, if you play retail, there's a good chance you don't really utilize gold swaps, but if you do play retail, classic, or multiple versions of the game, you might have used it here and there. Gold swapping refers to players trading gold between realms, between factions, and sometimes between different versions of the game. Like, for example, let's say you have one friend that plays on Classic, friend that plays on Retail, and the Retail friend wants to get some gold over in Classic, and you would just do like a swap of gold with your friend. Maybe you'll give them like 100,000 War Within gold, while they give you like, I don't know, 10,000 Cataclysm gold, and that's a swap. You know, they gain something, you get something, and you're able to kind of almost swap out your gold on a different version of the game. And players also did this also for cross-realm stuff, which isn't a retail thing because everything in retail is basically cross-realm, cross-faction. But in Classic, it is a little bit harder to trade stuff. So if you're looking to, let's say, swap out gold for one character, one realm, to gain gold for another character in Classic for another realm, or even cross-faction, where in Classic factions can't really interact with each other, or can in very, very limited capacity, then it was a way for players to be able to trade gold between realms, factions, and even game versions. It's always been a bit of a gray area where Blizzard wasn't necessarily gonna ban anybody for it, but there was a lot of warnings and a lot of risks, and they just want to make sure everybody's aware because it's an opportunity and an area where players can get scammed. Some players started to make this into a service of swapping gold, some legitimate, some not so much. But in some cases, where scams did occur, if they're able to backtrace it, that they could restore any lost gold and take actions against players. But it wasn't necessarily like a service or something they really wanted to necessarily support. It was a gray area where players were allowed to do it, but it wasn't necessarily like sanctioned. But now, recently, this action is now completely prohibited. It is no longer in the gray area, and now they have a statement that essentially prohibits and bans any gold swapping, as this now is a properly prohibited action that is now actionable against your account. There was a lot of back and forth on the forums discussing the details regarding this, but then at some point, everything kind of happened a little quickly, and they established a new rule on this entire gold swapping system to essentially eliminate gold swapping out of the game completely, no matter which version of WoW you play. In essence, gold swaps are now punishable and can result in up to account penalties and even account closures if you get caught doing it. And gold swapping counts as anything, whether you're trying to swap out gold between regions of the game, cross-faction, or cross-realm. And if this sounds very broad and very incompatible with retail WoW, then you can imagine how players saw the initial variation of that new rule change. Now, how did this new set of rules affect retail players? Because there was a lot of confusion and a lot of concern early on, because Blizzard's language regarding this whole set of rules was very vague and not clear enough, to be honest. But for retail, for the most part, this isn't an issue, and this set of rules isn't really going to affect you in any major way. The only thing you can do as a retail player is do the gold swaps between retail and classic, which makes sense since that's essentially what they're really going after. But there was a lot of confusion at the beginning because they didn't really use clear enough language to delineate between classic and retail what can and cannot be done. but they do have the extra bit of information there that says if it has a system designed to facilitate such an activity in game, then you should be good to go. And retail WoW has warbands, which allows you to send items and currencies cross-faction, servers, so it doesn't make a difference. So all that supports it. Auction house is also cross-faction, cross-regional. Being able to trade with other players within dungeons. Like, let's say you get an item at the end of a dungeon run. You don't need it. Somebody else can use it. You can trade to them. Faction doesn't matter. Server doesn't matter at all. Even somebody that does, let's say, carries for gold for Mythic Plus dungeons or heroic raids, or whatever you do, all those things are perfectly fine. So essentially anything that has a system that supports it is allowed. So for retail WoW, you can still trade gold between your friends, even if they play on the opposite faction or on another realm. You can still send gold and items across all of your characters, no matter what faction or realm that they are. Basically, retail is almost exempt from this rule. The only thing you can do with retail is to swap gold from retail to classic. Like, any of the gold that you have on retail can stay between any retail characters, but you can try to find a way to transfer the gold to the classic realms instead. That is about it. And that's where a lot of confusion came from, is a lot of players that play retail were worried, like, wait, hold on a second. Can I no longer send items to my alts and I play on multiple different realms now? It was a very broad rule, but they then had to go and adjust it a little bit to add some additional clarification, but they probably should put up an extra blue post just to say, no, retail players, you're for the most part good, as majority of this rule will affect classic players in a variety of different ways. Now, for classic players, essentially it means that you can't really swap out gold between different versions of the game. Cataclysm, SOD, Classic Anniversary Realms, and Retail are their own versions, so you just are unable to transfer gold through those methods. However, Classic also has two more rules: cross-faction, not allowed; cross-realm, not allowed either. So even if you have, let's say, a friend that you do the swaps with and you know you're not going to get scammed, you're not allowed to do that anymore. Technically, Classic does still have a system, a bit of a workaround, where you can go to a neutral auction house like the one in Gadsden and send gold from one faction to another of the same character. Like, this is something me and my friend did when we played back during the original launch of Cataclysm. We were both on Horde, and I think we wanted to go Alliance, or the other way around, and he wanted to transfer the gold from his Horde character to his Alliance character. Essentially, what he had to do is he had to give me the gold, and then he would hop on Alliance character, list like a pebble for 10,000 gold, or however much he had at the time, and I would use his gold to buy that item, allowing it to transfer that gold from his Horde character to his Alliance character. So that method, and I'm not even sure if it was necessary for that transaction, like a third party doesn't even need to be there, I'm not even sure, but that system is still in the game. Technically, you can do this to do items cross-faction. You're not necessarily swapping, but you are using an in-game system in order to be able to transfer gold between one character and the other across a faction. That hopefully should not get your character busted. There's a lot of players talking that they're just going to start doing this instead of swapping the gold, how they've done in the past, but besides this method, which is still kind of inconvenient, the actual cross swaps and swapping between factions, between realms, that is something that's been a part of Classic experience for a decent bit. So this change is definitely going to create quite a bit of a inconsistency. However, while this does create a variety of different issues, there's still even more concerns from the community that arose after they made this change to prohibit any kind of gold swapping at all, especially hitting hard for classic players, because one of the things they talked about is potentially using some sort of an automated system to look out for sites and suspicious activities, such as a max level player transferring gold to a level 10 player, which is usually linked to players potentially getting scammed, and potentially this is how a lot of gold swaps occur. And it's not, besides Blizz, to use automated systems to catch a lot of these. Hopefully they still do a lot of the research and investigation necessary to make sure they're not banning people wrongly, although we have seen a lot of reports in the past where they just use an automated system and players just get screwed over by it. So I guess the question is, what if, let's say, you play Classic, whether it's Kata or SOD, and a friend of yours wants to join in on the fun, whether they join in for SOD Phase 8 or trying to get prepped for Mr. Pandaria Classic. You hop on a character to give him gold. does you as a max level player giving gold to a low level player gonna flag you? Because you know the automated system is definitely going to be looking for any suspicious activity. Is that gonna accidentally get players that are just not doing anything suspicious get slapped? I mean, that is a potential problem. Is the automation gonna be that strict? Also, gold swaps between trusted parties. While it has been a gray area, it has been something that players have utilized for a while. It also has been a feature that players have been partaken in Classic for a decent bit. Not every player, but a decent amount of players have been. So you are creating an issue where now there's going to be a bit more friction, a little bit more of this inconvenience between actual friends that play together, that know each other, that trust one another, and now they can no longer do any kind of gold swapping in any version of the game. This is going to create a little bit of concern for many. But also Classic WoW has other issues besides it, with many players also being kind of mad at Blizz because, okay, you're taking down the whole gold swap system for a potential of players getting scammed. Understandable, but what are some of the other issues that have been plaguing Classic for a very long time? Gold swaps and gold swap scams can be annoying, but what about bots? What about maybe players using bots in order to spam report an automated system to kick players out and report them for cheating and griefing potentially, which has been an ongoing issue for Classic for quite a decent bit of time. And again, another case of an automated system that could potentially just swipe out a player without a GM actually taking a look at it. What if that automated system is now going to start flagging players for giving gold to their friends that we talked about earlier? Then you also can take the cynic output of, hey, okay, so now we can no longer do any kind of easy gold swaps with convenience and with trusted players. The only other way to conveniently get gold on a Classic character now, unless you just want to start grinding professions and grinding mobs to make that gold, it is going to naturally angle some players towards the shop and towards buying the in-game token, which is unfortunate, and there's plenty of issues regarding the token itself. Just the existence of it is something that many players do not like to begin with. And I think the initial goal of trying to secure players from being scammed within Classic or within retail with any gold swaps, I think it's a very good and a noble goal to strive towards. I just think it was kind of came in really fast and really sweeping all out of left field, and maybe there's a better way that they could have gone about it. I'm just here to let you know exactly what's going on when it comes to a brand new rule that could potentially get you into some hot water. But with that, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community to keep up with all the regular War Within updates in particular. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.